That's basically how it works when we design and make new medicines.
Once you've made a drug, do you carry on testing it to make it better?
Sometimes we can. That's a very good question, actually. Sometimes we'll come up with a follow-up compound that might have a slightly different mode of action. So I can think of two now, for example, for the treatment of breast cancer. We invented the first gold standard for the treatment of breast cancer.
David has also remembered not to focus on one student when answering questions.
So yes, we're always researching and trying to refine them. Any other questions before I hand over to, I'm conscious of time, before I hand over to Mr. Marshall? No? Okay, well let's move on because...
David's done well, but taking questions has meant he's overran his part of the presentation. Now it's Peter's turn, and gets off to a good start demonstrating some of the medical apparatus he's brought with him.
I have a box here with a number of different samples of drug delivery systems. Really what I want to know is what forms are you aware of? How would you take a drug normally?
Bottle.
A bottle, so you have something you take, a drink, so a solution, so I've got some cough medicine here, yeah?
Like nasal ones?
Nasal sprays. Hopefully you're not going to come up with one I don't know. What else?
Inhaler.
Inhaler. We have two inhalers. We have a liquid inhaler. Most of your friends, any of your friends who've got asthma, you'll have seen these. It's a dry powder inhaler as well. This is another asthma one. Okay. I've got some capsules as well, a bit like tablets. So there's all sorts of different ways we can get drugs into the body.
Peter's started well, getting his students engaged and answering questions. But how will he get on presenting his complex graph?
This is a morphine-based drug. On this graph are three different ways of delivering it. If you see the dark blue line, this is an injection of 5 milligrams. With an injection, it's gone into the bloodstream, very quickly got around the body to where it needs to go. So you get a very quick response.
Peter's forgotten to explain the axes on his graph, and it seems the pupils don't really understand what he's talking about.
Using a specially engineered needle, Zoladex is injected.
David rounds the lesson off with a short video, finally ending the lesson some 15 minutes over.
Thanks and good luck with the rest of your course.
Despite cutting short the pupils' lunch hour, it seems the presentation has gone down well.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's really good. I've actually went on the AstraZeneca trip, so the first bit like we've seen before, but I think when I was there I was just kind of preoccupied looking at the big machines, so I actually got to like understand it a bit better.
I thought it was really good. I've also been on the AstraZeneca trip and seen the first bit as well, but it went into more detail, so I understood it a lot better.
I've not actually been on the trip like Lena has, but no, it's really interesting. Good to find out how they make the drugs and stuff, but yeah, I found it really interesting.
So how was it for Peter and David?
I thought it went quite well. The pupils were quite attentive. They certainly asked questions when we kind of prompted them to ask questions. So I felt overall it went quite well. I think maybe we took a little more time than we had planned.
10 or 15 minutes, I think, but
Yeah.
I think actually part of that was taken up by the questions that came out. They were certainly attentive.
Sure.
And when we wanted them to get involved, they did. We didn't have to do it all for them, so that was very good.
Yeah. The fact that we used different media, so we used video, samples, demonstration, handouts, and PowerPoint or slide presentation was quite deliberate and sort of played perhaps to different learning styles and broke the presentation up a little.
But also gave them something they could take away.
Yeah.
So they didn't sort of come away and half an hour later they've forgotten it all. They actually got something they can work from, and also something they can annotate their own notes to.
Quite.
But now it's time for feedback from the teaching professionals. So how did they rate?
What struck me as you did the lesson, I was very struck by your enthusiasm and the depth of knowledge. So I was delighted with that aspect, and I think that sometimes that's what communicates as much as what you say.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way you said it, at points you just did remind me of a teacher, that you were getting enthusiastic about the subject. I was delighted that what we said about the questions, it came up, and that
that was really
though
good.
slow to start, it worked well, and you handled it so well because you were pleased with the question, and you.
Yeah. And what about just the simple fact of having us, in this case, are people from outside coming into the classroom? How do you think that plays with the students and with the staff, for that matter?
I think it's vital, isn't it, that we especially for the vocational courses
This is
that we're
it.
doing, it's really important.
Okay.
You people, you know it far better than us, and we're coming to the end of our knowledge, and we're desperate to have someone who really knows what they're talking about, rather than we stand up and cobble together something and we feel like we don't quite know what we're talking about.
I think the Science in Schools initiative is a really important one, and I think that we're very lucky to have such good links with AstraZeneca, so that we have this facility of bringing in leading people from the field to speak to our students.